I'm happy to meet you. My name is John. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at PaintScout, and so happy you can make it. I'm hoping it's going to be really valuable for you today, just to explain how to confidently price painting projects using the production rate method. So with that all said, a couple of housekeeping items before we get going. We are going to answer questions at the end. In order to ask a question, if you have anything going on that you're curious about this presentation, please write that in the Q&A section, not the chat. So we'll be moderating that Q&A section and getting back to any questions that we can at the end. That said, this is going to take probably 20 to 30 minutes all in all for this presentation, and maybe we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end for questions. So I'm excited to have you. I'm going to get into it now, and let me share my screen. Can't show the screen yet.
Sorry.
That's right. All right. Let's go back to the start here. Press play. All right. So like we said in our email, this session is called How to Confidently Price Painting Projects. It's the production rate estimation method explained. And I'm going to be saying production rate estimation a lot throughout this presentation, so I apologize, but it is relevant to the conversation. So quick introduction about me. Like I said, my name is John. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at PaintScout. And I have some history in the painting industry. That's where I am of value to this whole organization. I'm not a programmer, but let me tell you a little about me. So in 2012, I had a painting business. And that was the year that I really realized I had a problem. I was working probably 16 hours a day. I was doing estimates in the evening, doing estimates in the morning, really, burnt out. And my team was working. I had a small team at the time, but I wasn't sure if we were making money. And at the end of 2012, my accountant said, "John, you actually have lost money this year." And it felt like a huge, huge waste of time. And I'm sure some of us have all been there. But at that point, I said, there's got to be a better way. And so I searched around, and I was introduced to production rate estimating. And that worked. It made sense to me. And we're going to talk about that today. But when I actually implemented that system, we were able to grow the business and hire some salespeople, which was great. But the problem was there was no software at the time that really tackled this problem in a modern way. So in 2017, we launched PaintScout. And since then, we've had the privilege of helping hundreds of contractors build estimation systems that work for their business, that allow them to grow and to get the life that they're looking for. Before we start in this conversation, I need to define the word confidently. It's really relevant, I think, to all of us that when we do a quote, we've all had those doubts about, is this the right price? Am I going to get the job? If I do the job, am I going to make money? And these are real problems for painting contractors. And today I want to give you a systemized approach to know when you run into problems, how to fix it, and to feel like when you're going into an estimate, you've got some confidence to feel like your price, you can't go lower than that, or there's no room for negotiation. And that's going to be hopefully of value at the end of this presentation. So the third point here in the introduction is that production rate estimating may not be right for you. There's several systems that we've seen work over the years for different contractors. The key word there is systems. You need to have a system around sales, we believe, that lets you understand why you're pricing the way you are. And that may not be production rate estimation. So today, this is really an intro to the concept. It's not going to go too far in depth. And if you want to have a further discussion about that, our team is happy to help at any time. But today we want to introduce that concept. If it's new to you, awesome. If you have a system that works, then hopefully this information will just help build on that system. So keep that in mind. All right, before we start into what production rate estimating is, I want to talk about the estimation progression stages that most painting contractors go through. Stage one, this is when most people start out, the WAG approach. This is not my term. This is a term I've heard many times in the industry, and it's referred to as the wild ass guess. You show up on site, you price a job. Your hope is that you get that job and really keep your team busy. But on the other end of things, you don't know if you've made money. You might lose your shirt on that job. You also don't know how to produce it properly. You've just tried to get the work and find the price that's right. And there's a lot of dangers in that. And once you realize that, you move to stage two, which is the smart wild guess. Now you've got some experience. You're starting to build a price that's based on past failures and build that into your estimating system. However, you still don't know if you're making money. You still don't understand the why of what you're doing, that reason for confidence, understanding the why. And that's where we see contractors move to stage three. And that's where I was in, going into 2013. I needed a better system. And it's a systemized estimation approach. And that means that you've got a framework around what you're doing. You start to understand why. You can communicate that to your team. You can build your team and allow other people to share in the success of your business. And the production rate estimation system was the one that changed my life. It may not be the one that changes yours, but it's a system, and that's what's important. This is also where we see a lot of the contractors that work with us really excel. Once they have this system, they're building multi-million-dollar paint contracting companies, and there's a lot of power in that. So yeah, that's the progression we see. And now I'll get into what is a production rate estimating system. All right, so we're going to run our first poll. If you haven't done polls before, it's a chance for you to interact with us. We just want to learn a little bit about your familiarity with things. And so if you want to answer this, the question is, how familiar with production rate estimation are you? I'll give you a minute to answer that. All right, see the results. So it looks like it's pretty split, which is great because that means there's a reason for us to do this webinar today. So I'm happy to see we've got about 35 people here in the webinar and 15 people this is new to. So that's great. Hopefully some takeaways. And for those of you who are familiar, hopefully it's just a chance for you to look at your system again and maybe for us to just meet for the first time, which is great. So all right, let's get into it. Oh, we've already done the poll, so no need for that slide. All right, so at its essence, production rate estimation is really three variables. It's the number of hours for a project, the number of your hourly rate for your business, plus your materials. So there's these three variables, although on the surface that they seem quite straightforward. We're going to go through the steps to actually look at how to break those down. And I did put a little star between materials because we found that once you become comfortable with this system, you may move materials into your hourly rate. And that just brings it down to two variables, allows you to have control still in the system, but it also gives you a chance for you to produce well. So we'll talk about that as well. All right, 4 simple benefits of production rate estimating. First is consistent pricing. Once you have a system around this, you can provide the same price, almost nearly the same price for every project that you run into that's the same. And there's a lot of value to that. And not to mention, you're not going to lose your shirt, hopefully, by using this method. That's really the idea, moving away from those wild guesses into production rate estimating. You're going to make money. You're going to understand why you make money. And that's really important. I think that's why we're all in business, hopefully. I don't think any of us are running painting charities, which is, a whole nother discussion. If you are, I'd love to learn more about that. But in this case, you're going to understand the why behind making money, and that's important. Third, easier to train, building a team, moving that responsibility into more individualized roles. You need a system, and the production rate estimating system allows for that. Quick story, at our family painting company, we've had people come through over the years who've had zero experience with painting. We had somebody who sold bras previously who joined us, and in 3 weeks using this system had her up and trained in order to sell paint jobs. There's a lot of value to that, just to build a team, because I don't think there's a lot of painting estimators out there for hire these days. So we're looking at training people from the industry or outside the industry who are sales professionals to do this role and excel, and they need the most information they can. So this system allows you to produce better. As painting contractors, we essentially sell time. And by breaking the system down into time, you're able to communicate to your crews how long a job should take. And therefore, as the age-old saying goes, if you don't have a plan, any destination will do. And with this process, you'll be able to give your team a plan, allow them to hit the actual number of hours, and therefore make the actual profit margin you're looking to make. That said, if you subcontract, this is still valuable. You can now have a reason to have a conversation with your subcontractors. You can justify them the prices. It's not strictly just based on something that they don't have any control over. They can kind of see how the project should be broken down, which is value. I got to mention 2 drawbacks because, you know, with every great thing, there is drawbacks. Number one, the system is good, not perfect. It's not going to take into account every roll of tape that you're using, every roller head. This is built for doing estimates quickly, good long-term averages, but you're not going to be perfect with every estimate. You got to be comfortable with that. Second thing is that, you know, this is still an art, not a science. Some variables on a painting project are going to require estimating. For example, preparation, you know, drive time, setup. These are things you're going to have to train your team on how to visually identify and to actually estimate properly. So, you know, painting in itself is an art. That's what we do. It's a, you know, application of coatings to surfaces, essentially colors to surfaces. And, you know, there is some variables in that you're going to have to train on. This isn't fail safe just in measurement and not counting. So, let's look at step one. Step one is, you know, how to figure out how long things take to do. And this process involves timing. So let's get into how to do that. In order to figure out how long things take to do, you're going to have to start to time yourself and your team doing projects. You know, and we get a lot of questions about, well, I'm a fast painter, but I've got people on my team who aren't. How should I evaluate the time? Well, we want to do this at an intermediate level or an average level. Throughout a painting business, we pay people differently based on their skill and the quality they can produce. Therefore, that's going to make up for the time that you are estimating if you average it out. So on an average basis, that trainee might get paid less, but that's going to give them more time in order to do the project. So that's why we do it average in this system. Once you've got your time, you want to break that down into square feet per hour, linear feet per hour, or hours per unit. I'll give an example in a second here, but be as detailed as possible. If you go through and you've got a room, you know, identify the surface you're working on, identify the 1 coat time, the 2 coat time for that, you know, try to be as detailed as you can so you can reuse those numbers. And once you've got a set of numbers, those are your production rates, and you're going to apply those. So let's look at a quick example here. This is a room. You've walked into the room, you've measured it. Hopefully you've used a laser measure. That's really handy, really uninvasive to your client. And you've identified this 425 square feet of previously painted walls. On an average pace, you know, you've timed it, and it's took 5 hours to paint that 2 coats. So let's look at the math. 425 square feet divided by 5 hours, that's 85 square feet per hour. Therefore, I can paint 85 square feet, 2 coats per hour on previously painted walls. So this would be the production rate that you're going to use to apply to future projects. You're going to take this, you're going to measure your surfaces, and you're going to apply an 85 square feet an hour when a client asks for 2 coats on previously painted walls. So that's how you replicate it. Now I want to go through a quick interior case study with you guys. I know you probably weren't expecting to do a little bit of homework here today, but you know, what better than today to do it? So we're going to go through an example, and I want you guys to spend 2 or 3 minutes here once I go through the details to calculate the amount of time that you think this project will take. All right, so here's the case study. How many hours is this bedroom going to take? And I'm going to give you the variables here in a second on the left side, but I'd like you to grab a pen or a piece of paper or whatever surface you have to write on or take notes and calculate the time. We're going to run a poll here to see what everyone thinks. So what's entailed? This is a 12 by 15 foot room, 8 foot high ceilings. We're painting the walls, the ceilings, the baseboards, 2 medium window frames. Don't worry about all the inset items. We're just doing the outside frames here. And we're doing 1 door and 1 frame, 1 side. So you can see that all there in the pictures. We're not going to take into account any setup time or prep. So I'd like to take 2 or 3 minutes here. We're going to play a great song, and feel free to calculate, then we'll take a poll here. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to take some notes here. We're going to do a quick poll here on what everybody thinks this room should take. All right, give you a second here for everybody to answer. Good, okay. All right, so we've got a couple people who think it's going to take less than 5 hours. We've got some at 5 to 10. We've got majority at 11 to 15, and we've got a few people at 16 hours plus. So I'm not going to say that any of you guys are wrong. I think anybody could be right, but once you measure time, you're going to be able to see whether your company can actually achieve these things. I'm going to go through here a quick example of how we might do it. Oh, ran the poll already. Remember, it's our first webinar. We're going to get used to this soon. All right, so I want to break down, based on the production rate method, how we might handle this room. Like I've said before, the amount of time things take is really relative to your company. And so the numbers we have here for production rates might be a great place to start, for you to start to see how your team produces things and start to tweak it from there. So the way we've done this is we've taken our 12 by 15 foot room. We've figured out the square footage of the walls, the ceiling, how many linear feet of baseboards we have based on those measurements. And then we've taken the units of doors and window frames and added those in for the amounts. I will mention here for the production rate method, when you are getting square footage on walls or trim or ceilings for that matter, you're not going to remove openings from those measurements. And the reason is that you're going to have to cut around those things. It's going to take a little bit more time, and it's not just going to be a straight roll up and down on those walls. So we're following what the PCA would say in terms of their standards for measurements when we say that you should not take out those items. Now, if you have if all of those walls were windows, or 2 of those walls were windows, you would want to look at removing those from your calculation, just because it's over a large percentage of that room. So keep that in mind. But let's take a look here how we've done it. So walls 432 square feet at 100 square feet per hour. That's going to give us 4.5 hours. We're rounding up here. Our team in this case, our fictitious team, 4.5 hours is understandable to them. 4.32 hours is going to be a little bit harder. So we want to round that up, give a little more buffer. Ceilings, again, we got 2 hours there. Baseboards, roughly 2 hours. Door and frame one side, we've got 1.5 hours for that, and 1 hour for medium window frame. So that gives us 11 hours for this room. So that's how you might break it down. Again, that number may not be correct for your business, but at least, this is how you start to think about how to process this type of a project using a production rate method. All right, we're going to do the same thing. Exterior case study. So again, get your pen and paper handy. We're going to give you guys another 1.5 minutes here to do the exterior case study. And yeah, let's get into it. So in this case, we're going to be painting the front of this home. Just the front. We're not doing all sides, so don't worry about that. Just what you see is what you get here. We're doing the wood siding, 60 feet wide, 10 feet tall. We're going to do 10 large shutters, 4 medium shutters, 2 dormers. And by dormers, what I'm referring to is those 2 areas up on the roof there with windows. So we're doing the siding and the painting around those. And again, we're painting 2 coats, no preparation, no setup time to take into account. I'm gonna give you guys another minute and a half here, and let's take a poll at the end. All right. So now if you could answer this quick poll on how many hours you feel like the front of this home is going to take based on the variables we've got. Give you a couple seconds to do that. All right, see what we got. Great, so we've got some answers here. Obviously nobody thought under 15 hours. That's a good guess. I think this is gonna take more than that. We've got 21% here between 60 and 25, 64 between 26 and 45, and we got 15% over 64 plus. So guys, thanks very much. Thanks for participating. This has been fun. So I'm gonna go through the breakdown of this. Again, some average rates. So, all right, we'll break this down. And again, I want to mention these numbers may not be right for you. We get comments on that all the time, and it's absolutely true. You need to know what's good for your company and your production team on average. So shingle siding here, we got 400 square feet of that. So again, we've taken the 60 feet. And if you're curious about measuring, which I know we mentioned we covered today, that would be done just by either walking out this space, so walking from end to end, or having a rolling measuring tape with you. If you are going to walk it out, make sure you know how big a step is for you. That can be really helpful on exteriors, just to figure out quickly, if I walk at an average pace, how long is this going to be? In this case, we got the 60 feet, 10 feet high, so it's 600 square feet of siding. Large shutters, we have 10 of those. Medium shutters, 4, 2 dormers, 1 peak above the doors. Did not actually mention that in the calculation. Whoops. In any case, so we've got about, once we break it down, 40.5 hours. Keep in mind, this does not take into account preparation. This does not take into account any type of setup, that type of thing, which needs to be factored in based on the condition of the surfaces you're working on. And that's something you're going to have to work with your team on identifying. So, so my apologies for getting this answer a little bit incorrect, but I think most of you guys are kind of in the right range. It looks like about 60% of you are. So that's great. And again, build this out for your team. So let's move on to step 2. That's applying your hourly rate. So we've got the amount of time things take. Now we need to know how much that time costs. So what's your hourly rate? That's a question that we get a lot here, how to calculate the hourly rate. I'm sure you've thought about this personally as well. What is my hourly rate? What does it mean? And this is really the point where you need to factor in a lot of parts of your business to figure this out. It's essentially your business in one number. It's your cost of labor. It's your possibly materials if you want to include it. It's your overhead, operating, profit built into one number that you can deliver on an hourly rate. So we're going to run a poll here in a second. Actually, we can run it right now. We'd like to run another webinar. Hopefully these are helpful to you. We're not sure, but if you would like us to let you know if when we run an hourly rate webinar, we want to dig into this specific subject in more detail, help you understand it. We would love to know if that's of interest to you. If so far in this 20 minutes this hasn't been helpful, we totally will not understand. Our feelings won't be hurt. We will not do any more webinars. So, all right, let's. Where are you at here? Let's see. So that'll give us. Yep, great. Okay, so we will run that webinar. We will let you know, just to keep the conversation going. So what it does once you understand your hourly rate, though, is you're gonna have a chance to make decisions on how you price projects. It's really your main lever to take into account your increase in material costs, your increase in labor costs. You can start to build those into your hourly rate, and that gives you a lot of confidence in terms of how you're pricing projects. All right, how to break it down, really, really simple. This is going to be for the webinar we do run, because I guess it is of interest to everybody. You're going to want to get to your historical numbers together. To do that, you want to get a profit and loss statement, hopefully from last year if you have it. If your accounting's up to date, that'd be great. And then we want to break your historical numbers down by the number of hours worked by your production team over the year. That's going to give us a sense of averages, average cost per hour that you have. And then we're going to determine together what your profit requirements are. That's different for every business. Some people are, looking for more or less out of their business and pricing accordingly. And then we want to add them all together. And then voila, you're going to have a number that you're going to feel confident with, at least on a historical basis, and be able to tweak that for changes in your business. So that's what we'll be running in our next webinar, and we'll let you know how it goes, when, not how it goes, when it's going to go. Step 3, we want to calculate materials. So now you've got your how long it's going to take. You have your hourly rate. You're going to want to figure out your materials. This is usually, most people, this is the first place they start. This is a manageable topic, and the reason is because you're going to work with, figure out how many gallons of coating you're going to need, and that, you take your square footage of the space, you divide it by the coverage that is in your your coating manuals or the back of the can. They're going to tell you how much that should cover, and you're going to figure out the gallons for that project, and then multiply that by the price. That'll give you your cost for material for paint. Sundries, by sundries, I mean, if that's a new word to you, we're referring to, things like roller heads, disposable items like tape, plastic, that kind of thing that you're going to use, and you want to allocate that cost to your customer. Some people do it on an average basis per job or job size. Other people add it individually. The more you add it, this goes to point 4 here, the more tedious your estimating process is going to be. So once you've got those two things, you've got your paint, you've got your sundries, you may want to apply a markup to those. We get a lot of questions here about what's the right markup. The answer is we don't know. It's what's right for you, and you need to identify that based on your expectations of pricing, how you're fitting into the market, that type of thing. So the last point here that I do star once again is that we see a lot of professional larger organizations building their average hourly spend on materials, the percentage of that into their hourly rate. Don't want to get into too much detail on that now. That'll be for the next webinar we hold. But for the sake of discussion today, use that hourly rate, see how it applies to your time. That's how you would start using the production rate estimation system. All right, now step 4 of 5 here, we're almost done, is how to put it all together. So let's look at that room that we estimated, 11 hours to paint. My average hourly rate is $55. I'm going to charge $155 in materials. Therefore, this project will cost 11 hours times $55 an hour plus $155 for materials, or $710. Or, and this goes back to our point about adding your material costs into your hourly rate, 11 hours at $64.50 an hour, which includes materials, that gets you to $709.50. And that cost is roughly 15%, it's a little bit less. We see averages being about 12 to 18% for material spend. So keep that in mind. All right. Step 5, you want to know if you're having success with this method. So you got to back check. How to back check? The term that is used in the industry is called job costing. If this is a new term to you, happy to introduce it to you. If not, a reminder that this is probably a great time to start doing this more often. So important to your business to make sure that you're having success. What this means is check your actual results against your estimate. So every job you do, you want to figure out what your labor cost, you want to figure out what your material cost was, and start to break that down against what you bid. So if you know what you're looking for a gross profit, you can start to compare whether you had success. And that's going to allow you to see if you're going too slow, if you got to adjust anything in your system, if you got to look at the times again and retime your production rates, if you need to, if you're spending too much on materials, adjust those costs in your estimate. So great chance to back check. Again, this is a very introductory concept or slide about this concept. And, we'll be helping more if people are interested to understand this concept more in depth. All right, just a couple of key takeaways before we get to questions. It's so important to have confidence in the numbers you're providing. Helps you sleep at night, helps you build a team. Once you break projects down on time in the production rate method, you're going to be able to produce jobs better theoretically because your team understands the destination. By allowing it to be replicable to your team, you can bring on new salespeople, and that has a lot of power to build your organization and to just allowing to take that pressure off you personally if you're doing it, and to build your team and have other people involved in the success of your business. Fourth, consistent estimating allows you to make money. It really does. You don't want to guess. You got to know if you're making money on projects, and that's why you're in business. And the last point is, with all of this said, this system may not be right for you. I know I mentioned at the start, but you need to evaluate if this information is helpful to you. Great. If you already have a system that works, that's awesome too. And the last point of this is that at PaintScout, we've built it so that it will take into account a lot of different types of estimation. Pretty much everything we see is possible in PaintScout, but it works great with production rate estimating. So with all that said, if you have questions, love for you to type in the Q&A right now. I'll answer anything that you can type in there. And yeah, give you a couple minutes here to do that, and we'll wrap it up. Okay. So far, we don't have any questions. So it sounds like everyone understands this perfectly. That's awesome. Oh, got a couple. Just waiting for them to come in here. If anyone's wondering, we will be sending out the link to this webinar afterwards, so you can have a chance to take a look if there's anything you missed. Really hoping this was helpful to you. That it gave you some background. It seems like a lot of people are familiar with this, so this type of estimating, which is great. Hopefully, this is a good reminder to you. And yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure to be able to have clients and newcomers here as well. All right. Question from John. Would you say using the PDCA numbers is a good starting point? Yeah, I've gone through the PDCA numbers before. I think it is a good starting point. It can be a little, I found them a little bit confusing at times. There's a lot of variables there. And so, I think anything is a good starting point. If you're going to get into this and start doing it, just use something and see how it goes. Just test. That's really where we found that we could build rates. It took us a couple months, but we did it that way. And the PDCA numbers are there for good reason, but take them with a grain of salt for sure. Question from Chris. I learned you're underestimating some things. Fair enough. Hopefully this is going to help you out. All right. So Seb, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly there. We'll be having a webinar in the future on efficient ways to quote a whole house interior exterior. I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, if this has been helpful, we can definitely do more webinars on that stuff. The goal here at PaintScout is that we can get a whole house estimate down below 10 minutes, and then have you have confidence in that number. So yeah, I'd love to do that. We'll keep these coming if they're helpful. Just give us a little encouragement, and we'll be happy to keep doing them. So do you have a starter? This is a question from Sefton. Do you have a starter guide to move hourly workers to test and adopt production rates? We don't currently, but we're building what we call a PaintScout Academy. We're going to have a lot of information available here in the future on how to do this. That's a great idea. I'd love to build that guide and have our team build that for you. So, stay tuned. We'll see if we can do that. Now, I assume what you're talking about here is just how to move people to the concept of adopting the production rates. And that's a bigger question of your team, I think, and communication, but we'll definitely keep that in mind. Peter, how do you factor in difficult clients? Well, I think we all have a factor that we know when we deal with difficult clients, you got to raise the price. They're going to cause more time. And in the production rate method, if you're using time, add some time on. If this is somebody is going to be asking you lots of questions, causing you lots. Yeah. Emily has answered 25%. I don't disagree. That's definitely a starting number. And yeah, try to build some time in. So whether it's 25% or you break that down into time, like I'm going to need an extra 25 hours to deal with this person, you can use the same method to take in that account. So I love that, Emily, the PETA charge. It's a great term. I gotta use that in my every day for sure. Question here from, well, this is a name I can't pronounce. But the question is how you use a template for sundries cost per job. So yeah, in the production rate method, sundries are something you're going to have to calculate probably outside of it. We don't have a template for that per se. I'd say, if you had an Excel spreadsheet, you could start to do that and take into account sundries. I'm a big proponent of, keep it simple. And I really think that there is value to looking at your long-term averages for sundry costs versus trying to do each on an individual project. Now, that's my opinion. That doesn't have to be the way you do things, but that actually is going to keep it a lot more simple. When you do an estimate, use less time, give you a little bit more, that good, not perfect mentality really works in that case. But if you want to break it down, I'd say a spreadsheet with all your sundries on it would work well. David Cooley, average markup for materials would be 12 to 15%. So that again, that question, really not sure on markup. It's a comfort level for you and your business. The percentage I mentioned before is actually average material spend that a painting contractor has is between 12 and 18%, depending on the projects you're doing, depending on the quality of paint you're using, that type of thing. We've seen markups up to 50, 100%. That's really up to you. We also see people that don't mark up materials. They build that into their profit margin. So hopefully that answers that for you, David. Thanks. Great question. Lucy, how would you factor in wood rot repair? Yeah, so like I mentioned before, you're going to need to come up with a way to assess that on a time basis. We see some contractors doing, if you have a breakout, so that might be like a spot that needs sanding or scraping, might be 15 minutes. And that's a way to allocate time in a production rate method. If you're doing wood rot repair, that might require a lot more time. You might want to allocate 4 to 6 hours. So if you have a system towards that, you're doing an epoxy application, you're having to put in new wood, this is a way that you can start to systemize those things, because typically one rot repair, it might be small, medium, large, and you can have some factors around what that might take. So hopefully that helps you, Lucy. That's how I do it for a production rate method. Scott, what is the best system you have heard of to get actual hours from the field? We found them very difficult to get concrete actual numbers versus projected hours. I'd suggest using a time clocking system. There's a few out there that have GPS tracking. QuickBooks Time is one that we've seen. ClockShark is another. There's other systems that do it as well. WorkGlue, allow yourself to have GPS tracking. That's going to track your hours. It'll also link back into your accounting system. So that's a good way to track it. And by doing it GPS, you can have people clock into jobs, and all those systems will allow you to do that. Get the hours for the job. It's easier for admin at the office. So hopefully that answers you, Scott. Definitely some things to look into. David, another question here. And thanks for all the questions, guys. These are really great. For materials, would you recommend deciding on the products to be used on every project, choosing a premium standard for each instead of having all the products to choose from to make the estimation process faster? The answer to this is yes, absolutely. You want to get the price in the hand of your client as fast as possible to have a discussion. If you can figure out, your basic, your slight upgrade and your premium, that's going to help you adjust your pricing quite quickly. If you're going with individual products, that's going to add time. And again, the production rate estimating system is about speed, good, not perfect. And if you can do it that way, it's going to help you save a lot of time. So thanks for that, David. John, if I price a door for 1 hour to paint and it takes my guy 1.5 hours to paint, what's the formula to figure out how to pay him? Yeah, great question. So there's two parts. There are two parts to this answer, I think. One is how do you expect his production to go? So if you're paying him to meet your average rate as that's what his expectation is. If he produces that in 1.5 hours, that's probably too slow when you're gonna have a discussion about, hey, this is not the speed at which we do things. Might have to give you another opportunity to try this. If you can't reach the speed, this might not be the right position for you. It may be actually slightly less pay. That's a discussion hard to have for sure. Easier though to do it on the start and test people a little bit before you start to agree on pay rates. I think that way you can see how they produce and see just what they can do before you agree on something. Going back is super hard. So, but the power I think in the production rate method is that you can give them targets. So if that individual knew that door should take 1 hour to paint and they do it in 1.5 hours, well, now that's a discussion because they knew that it should be done in an hour. And that's a great discussion to have with your team. I think it's a good team building exercise, and it's a good way to really, test your system and see if it works. So thanks, Jonathan. Great question. All right. Oh, David Cooley, love this class, dude. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Some of the houses are neglected, others are in good condition. How can we train estimators to account for the condition of the home using PaintScout? I would say, this is where you might want to run, it's a training process. So if you go to a home and you can identify that, hey, this is how this home gets prepped. This is how it actually works to do this. Here's the time required. They might start getting that on their own over time. The second thing I would suggest though is have them take lots of pictures. When you're first starting out, you may want to give price ranges to the customer. So bound your price, it might be between here and here. Have them come back, review that with you, see the pictures, review the preparation with them, make the pictures really detailed. And that way you can start to help them build the estimate with them. And with PaintScout, because you actually see that in real time, you can actually have them be on site on a FaceTime, taking a video, you in the office tweaking their estimate in live time. So I think that's a really effective way to do that. And that way you're there with them. So yeah, thanks, David. Chris, any thoughts on a webinar for hiring 1099 employees? I'm not big enough yet to hold full-time employees. Reposting, I think this got skipped above. For us here, we're really focused on the sales process. This is a discussion that I think a lot of people are having. Staffing is hard right now. It's hard to recruit. I don't know that I'm the best to comment on this or in our team for that regard, but I think there's definitely some valuable resources out there to check out. Happy to give you those after this call if you want to message into us. We can give you some resources, but I think most contractors we hear are facing this problem, and that's probably not our area of expertise to help, but we know it's real. All right, any other questions before we shut this down? No? Okay, guys, again, thank you for your time. It's my privilege to be able to do this for you. Clients have showed up. Thank you very much for supporting PaintScout. Without you, this would not exist. And I hope this has been helpful. Any encouragement to us to keep running these would be so great. So feel free to, share the love. We love doing this. We love helping you. And yeah, if you're looking ever for a demo of PaintScout, message in. But this is free information for you. And yeah, my privilege. So hope you have a great day. Thank you so much. Go forth and dominate, guys. Have a good one.